Hello, everybody. This is Shane Douglas Keene, and I am joined by my partner in crime, Rich Duncan. Um, and tonight we are happy to be talking to the wonderful Jessica McHugh. Jessica is, well, I'll let Jessica introduce Jessica, but Jessica is amazing. I'll just put that part in there.
Oh, how does one define oneself? Hi everyone. I'm Jessica McHugh. I am a novelist. I'm a poet. I'm a playwright. I love horror, sci-fi, the mixing of both. Pretty much anything that pops into my head, if it seems interesting, I'm probably going to find a way to wrangle it into some story or poem or other. I have been thrice nominated for the Bram Stoker Award for my Blackout poetry collections. So that's been pretty amazing. And I, along with Blackout poetry, I also like to paint and stuff like that too. So I like to play. That's pretty much my whole, you know. My whole vibe is I just like to play.
I feel that. Except when I'm when I'm feeling all fucking emo, then I get serious and produce bad shit. But,
I mean, you gotta produce the bad shit too.
Yep.
And sometimes you get something really like a small little spark in the middle of all this that you can use in something else. So
Exactly. The trunk file is much larger than the finished and published file, but that's how we get there. I think
yeah.
Alan Baxter talked about that a few weeks ago, when we talked to him about, yep, if you have an inbox for rejection slips and an inbox for acceptances, the inbox for the rejection slips is always more successful,
Yeah, I think that was what we talked about with him. Yeah.
But I don't remember the name. I have read all of your Blackout poetry collections.
Thank you.
And was rooting for them to win the Stoker each year that they were nominated. And I don't remember the names of a single one. So toss those out there so people can go find them.
Sure. The first one is Complex Accident of Life. That is made from Frankenstein. Then there is Strange Nests, which is made from The Secret Garden. And then the last one is The Quiet Ways I Destroy You, made from Little Women. And for people that don't know what I'm saying, where I'm like made from, Blackout poetry is using pieces of existing prose or poetry or plays or religious tracks or anything to create, find a poem hidden within and then create a piece of art, usually blacking out the superfluous text. But you can do all kinds of fun things with it.
Truly, my sometimes writing partner, frequently, Steph Ellis, puts out some really, really killer found poetry too, and she often utilizes heavy metal songs for her source material.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So in the thing we're writing now, we're including some Blackout poetry, and in this whole process, what I have learned about Blackout poetry is I cannot fucking write it. Steph is really good, so she's doing that part.
It's interesting, especially with the one I'm writing, the collection I'm writing now, which is erotic horror created from Wuthering Heights. I'm also writing it as a 3-act play. So I'm doing a lot more crafting of the poems. A lot of them, it's just like, what pops out, that's what it is. And I don't work too hard to corral it into what I want it to be. But for writing a play, I kind of have to do that because I have to do dialogue back and forth. So I'm doing a lot of collage work with this one. So it's been a challenge, but it's not really worth it. It's my challenge, right?
Different different technical aspects to writing a play that I can see how that would, yeah. It's like, okay, well, I actually have to structure this some. I can't just, do like I usually do and just dive in and start throwing shit around until it makes sense to me.
Mhm. Yeah, but when I was reading Wuthering Heights, all this stuff about like it, was very erotic feeling. And then there was so much talk about food and like consumption. And I was just like, man, this is just asking for it.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be naughty to this book. And and
Well,
I
and
have
that's,
been. It's been a lot of fun.
yeah, and my first reading experience with your work proved to me that yeah, if anybody can handle that, it's Jessica McHugh. It was published by Max Booth. I can't remember the name of it, but it has a train and a lot of ghost sex and
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
the train derailed in Boston.
right. Yeah. But I can't imagine because Wuthering
Weird
Heights
one.
does feel very, very sensual,
Mhm.
or, does feel erotic, and the food aspect really, really, really kind of ramps up that sense, because like you say,
Mhm.
so much consummation and sensory input going on there.
Yeah. So it's gonna be called Feast. And
Mhm.
like the cast of characters are fun. I have like a whole group that's called the Greasy Spoon that like is kind of like the sexual exploration of this married couple. They come in and they kind of start playing around with them. And like everyone is named like the fat, the salt, the brine, and those are all the character names. So it's gonna be
Nice.
gross. It's gonna be gross and fun.
I was going to say I'm fun with a capital F, I suspect.
Yes. I definitely feel like it has that train derails in Boston vibe where it's like I want to turn you on and then I want you to feel really bad about it.
Right. That's a perfect way to describe train derails in Boston too. Oh, I'm not supposed to be feeling this
Yeah, I
way
mean,
right
what's
now.
wrong with me? Because that's how I felt
Um,
editing it, and I feel like I had to punish everybody. Writing it, not
right.
so much. Writing it was a blast, but editing, oh.
Oh, I can't imagine how much you'd second guess yourself in a situation like that. At least for me, I second guess the hell out of myself anyway, but
Yeah, I definitely did because I think the daughter character was originally 16 and I'm like, I think I need to bump this up to 18 just to because I'm already doing some messed up stuff. Let's at least make her legal.
let's go ahead and make her legal. Yeah.
So I made I was like, we'll leave in the femur scene, but we'll make her 18. So you got to pick and choose your battles.
Rich is, I think, Rich, correct me if
Huh.
I'm wrong, but I think Rich is a McHugh newbie. I don't know that he's had the experience yet.
Back when like early in Heist, I read I forget the title, the blackout poetry about Little Women. The
Yeah.
middle one,
Oh,
right?
I
Or
was
is
at
that one the
Australia.
secret card? Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Okay, so he's not a total virgin, but
Yeah.
still, the
Yeah.
question that I was going to ask is still valid. What would you consider the best Jessica McHugh gateway drug?
I mean, I love the Green Kangaroos. Green Kangaroos is
Yeah.
definitely that was like the most fun for me to write. Like I I don't know. There's just something about it where I love that. I love the character. I think it's really gross too. you know. And definitely I loved putting myself in Perry's shoes. And it was very cathartic for me because I have my brother was a heroin addict and I'm writing this addict character. And now it's 2099 Baltimore, so the drug is Atlas, because it makes you feel like you can pull the world on your shoulders, and really powerful. So it was a good way for me to process that.
Yeah.
So that it feels like a light novel to me, which is really fun, because I don't think it reads that way. I think it probably reads very heavy in parts, but for me it feels joyful. I don't know why.
Just
Yeah,
out of,
but
sorry,
go
Shane.
ahead, Rich.
No, I
No.
was just gonna say, because when you asked me about reading Jessica's work, I want to say wasn't part of that novel a short story, and I think it was like Garden of Fiends, maybe.
Yes, the like maybe the first third of it is
Mhm.
in that anthology. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that might have been my first one, and I can't remember.
It's a great anthology.
Was it a short story first and then fleshed out into a novel, or was it always
No,
kind of a novel?
it was actually even already published. I submitted a different story to that anthology, and Mark was just like, this doesn't quite fit, but I looked at your work and I saw this book. You have this book, Green Kangaroos, and he said he immediately read it and he loved it so much. He's like, can we republish the first bit in this anthology? And Max was cool with it. Max had a story in the anthology, so yeah, that's how that ended up happening. And I was just like, okay, yeah, sure. And he was fine with Max, it's fine with me.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about stuff like that is then your work is paying you twice.
Right. I mean, and it was great because they did an audio of that anthology as well. So I mean, it got to get to people that way, and I definitely got a bump in sales for Green Kangaroos,
Yeah.
and then we did a reissue, and then Mark ended up writing the introduction because he loves that book. So it's
Nice.
good when someone really latches onto your
Yeah.
work. Doesn't happen that often.
No, but when it does, it feels really fucking good.
Yeah, absolutely.
The moments we live for.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
these days you gotta grab on them.
Right?
Yeah, and with that one, because too, I think Alan said this last week, right, Shane, about it seems like those stories that connect with people, they're always kind of like the ones that are maybe from something that's like important to the author or a little bit tough. So it would make sense with like Green Kangaroo that that one would be so special and resonate so much with people.
Yeah. And it was so the antithesis of Strange Nest, because Strange Nest was also inspired by my brother, but when I wrote Green Kangaroos, he was clean and in recovery, and then I wrote Strange Nest the month he died from an overdose. So it was like I got the two opposing ones. So that was kind of, Strange Nest does not give me that joyful feeling that Green Kangaroos does, obviously. But still also a very cathartic experience, and helped me deal with like a different part of that continuing journey that just woof. So that's why Strange Nest, I'm always like, I don't really love to be around that. I feel like it's my cursed book. Even though I love,
but that's where, part of letting the personal stuff like that out, it's like I write a lot of stuff about addiction, and I've published a lot of stuff about addiction because I had that same black tar disease that your brother had, and fortunately I recovered, but a lot of people say that some of those poems are some of my greatest poems, just like poems about mental illness, because I'm fucking crazy, but for me, I look at those poems like that and they're just as like, I publish those because I believe in them and I know they're good, but they're so far from my favorite.
Yeah. I think there are just what I really love about Strange Nest is I also like that's when I really started doing illustration, you know, a lot more because I started doing the blackout poetry commissions too. And I drew when I was a kid, but then my brother teased me so relentlessly that I stopped for like 20 years. And then he passes away and all of a sudden I'm like drawing again. And it was like just such like a weird like unlocking kind of like permission, and I just went like nuts on that book, like just doing all kinds of weird things where I was like, I don't even know if I can do this, but I'm just going to make it happen. And it taught me a lot about who I am as an artist, which was, I mean, priceless. Thanks, bro. Or wherever you are. I just did a bad thing. A lot of screenshots are going to be going out now.
Right.
I've just canceled myself.
That's okay. We pretty much cancel ourselves every single episode. This is the dangers of
dead brother. Yeah, likely story. Fucking Nazi. My bad.
No, not at all. This is par for the course in our house.
For sure.
But I have ADHD and all thought went out my window now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say for Jessica, like when you were saying you were trying all those different things with that one book, that was one thing I wanted to ask you because Shane and I talk about this a lot, and that you know, like all of us are like writers and stuff, but like sometimes you kind of want to either experiment with something else and kind of like bring that into that world, or you know, you just want to try like weird stuff. And I guess because you're, you know, talented in many different mediums, like what would you what kind of like starter advice would you give for someone who's like primarily a writer but like kind of wants to tap into those other elements?
Yeah, I mean, I think blackout poetry is a great way to explore it. I think it's great for if you're a long form writer, if you want to try like different things like more visual art, like collage or illustration or stuff like that. I put out a blackout poetry playbook, a workbook that comes, it has a whole bunch of lessons and stuff. Oh, and it's pretty cool because like it includes pages from like Dracula and Frankenstein, and then we include like pieces of paper so you can write in it. It's all illustrated with lessons.
That's awesome.
And then when you're done like doing the provided like pieces of paper, then you can make blackout poetry of all the lessons. So I mean, it's a lot of fun. I find that doing blackout poetry, which is in a way akin to flash fiction as well. I mean, poetry in general is akin to flash fiction, where it's so much about word economy, where it's you want to choose the most powerful words in the right configuration to completely change someone in the shortest amount of time. When you get that one line and people are like, wow, what? Like, you can change someone's day, you can change someone's life. Like, you know, I think that's a really important skill to learn for long form writing too, because you always do want to say the most you can in the fewest amount of words as possible. So that's a great way to explore flash fiction and blackout poetry, but it also, you can do a lot of, I did sculptural stuff with my blackout poetry. I'm going to be doing like, I got this, it's off. Ooh, awful. Yeah, I'm dropping stuff. Anytime I see like junk, I'm like, that can be a blackout poem. I have I work at a tattoo shop, and there was this advent calendar that was all like tattoo stuff inside. And I was like, oh, I can make a blackout poem out of that. And it's just a bunch of drawers that pull out. And
Nice.
I'm like,
That's awesome.
So it's like, just doing that from simple. I started with just a Shirley Jackson book of essays and stories, from just doing simple crossouts and circles to how many years later? 5 years, 6 years later that I've been doing this, to doing like big like sculptural things and stuff. Like, so I never would have thought that I would be doing this kind of visual stuff, and I love it. And I didn't know where it was. It was hiding inside. You just kind of have to, I think, try things and see what speaks to you, which is tough. I know, because it's easier said than done.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like I saw it, like the very first blackout poetry that I saw from you was in and of itself extremely visual, which I loved about that. And then, to see it evolve and become something that's like literally, blackout poetry, like you said, sculpting almost, and stuff. It's just, I love to see creators evolve like that, because it's, for one thing, it's a sign of a creator maturing as an artist, for one thing, not learning more about themselves and kind of knowing themselves, and trusting their own visions and honesty in situations like that. I have no idea what the fuck
it's
I'm
nice
talking
to
about.
have. No, I completely agree. I mean, and it's nice to have something to. I know a lot of people don't like to work on multiple things at once, and I have always been that way. But I feel like it's beneficial that when you're slogging away on some short story or a novel that's just not quite doing it for you, to just do something. Just open a random book and start looking for a poem or a really cool line, or sometimes you find incredible metaphors that you might not have thought of, and that might spark something. So I always do it when I'm just completely stagnated. Just pick up something else, completely redirect, get away from the computer, get a book, a real book in my hands, and a pencil, and return.
And it's like you had said before, it's great for no matter what kind of creator you are, especially as a writer. Like I've only published 2 fiction pieces in the whole time I've been publishing, and everything else has been poetry. But even the 2 fiction pieces I wrote as long form poetry before I started editing them. My first drafts were long form poetry. Literally, Rich has seen some of that stuff, and then take it, and it's easier for me for some reason. My brain relates to it better, like because I'm 60 years old and been doing it since I was 12, But
I mean, I love having just pieces in a novel or something where it's going, its regular rhythm, and then to have this beautiful like section of like almost long form poetry. Like it's, I think that's such a beautiful, when people have the courage to kind of break convention and do something like that in a novel. I love it.
And I mean, even like everything that Steph Ellis and I have published together is fiction in poetry form. You know what I mean? We've published what we think of as a full-length novella and a full-length novel in poetry form now. And God knows what this thing is we're making right now. So yeah, I love seeing that. And then you look at creators like Kathy Koja, who like her books are sometimes the entire freaking book is like long form poetry. She's just so like you say, every single word is exactly where it belongs, and it's exactly the right word.
That musicality, just love it.
I live for it. Yep.
Yeah, and it's fun now that you mention that, Shane. I was just curious, Jessica. It sounds like you like her work, but I saw like a lot of crossover. You guys are both involved in different like arts spaces. Like trying to remember the first one. I think it was Dark Factory. Like she wrote the Dark Factory novel, and then she
Oh,
does plays
uh-huh.
and stuff. So I was just curious
Yeah.
if you would consider her like an influence, or you just are a fan just like we are.
I mean, I didn't read her stuff until much later, unfortunately, in my
Same.
writing development. But I mean, I think she is phenomenal and fantastic. And I my gosh, yeah, I haven't read her Wuthering Heights book yet, the new one that she had come out, Catherine. And I really, really want to. I'm just trying not to steal anything from it. I don't want to absorb anything by accident and put it in my Wuthering Heights. So I'm waiting to get to it. But yeah, phenomenal writer, and just like seems so cool. I don't think I've gotten a chance to meet her, unfortunately.
She's cool as shit. We had her
It's cool.
on the original version of Ink Heist. We had her on, and yeah, she's just all kinds of cool,
Yeah. You guys seem to have a lot in common. That's like when Shane brought up her work. Like you guys seem to have like the same kind of vibe and like like you said, playfulness with trying different mediums and things like that.
I'm fully willing to sign on as her new best friend.
And the other crossover I can think of is if you cross her, she'll kick your ass, and I think you're the same sort of person.
I might get a little teary in the. I'll be like, "Don't you do it?" So I like I said, I work at a tattoo shop, and I have a lightsaber, like a 3D printed lightsaber for when people get, a little too loud with me. But before that, I'm like, please don't speak to me like that. I don't like it. And then I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the guy who
I'm not
always
very
opts I had to. Oh yeah, sorry, I make little notes for myself as we're talking because I never remember what I was going to say. But on a personal note, both of you guys recently transferred to new homes now. How is that going for you? You first, Jess.
Oh, good. I since my old home was filled with mold and I can actually breathe now, at least better. I much prefer it. The only thing is I lived in a downtown area, and I like to do my Monday stomps and write at the bar or brewery or whatever, and now I'm not as close to all that anymore. There's just a couple within proximity, but hey, I'll take what I can get.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, nice. I like it.
Good. What about you, Rich? You guys settling in? And
oh, for sure. For long-time listeners, like we didn't do video or anything, and that was on purpose. Other than like maybe 3 episodes, and that was on purpose because my wife and I were staying with my in-laws, so I recorded in a walk-in closet with like all of our junk in the background. And now I have an actual room that I can record in.
Yeah,
that's all.
My library, so to speak. Yeah. My wife and I, we had 2 extra rooms, so like I made mine a library, and hers is like a craft area.
Mm-hmm. That's what ours. It's my writing hut. It's just a second bedroom, but yeah. And then my husband put up all because I, had all the blackout poetry. Like I said, I just pick up supplies and stuff. So we put up all these shelves so I could organize everything. It was like the first thing he did. It was awesome. I like walked in here and I'm like, art stuff.
Yeah.
I love art stuff.
Oh yeah. I probably should seek therapy for how much I love art supplies. I have like 400 colored pencils and every graphite pencil of
Yeah,
every softness and hardness, and a
of
bunch of
course.
oil paints. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
feel
like,
like
okay,
that.
Christmas sales. What
Palettes.
kind of art? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you can never have too much of that kind of stuff, though. I mean, I'm not, and the reason that's why I asked about the multidisciplinary thing is because I primarily wouldn't consider myself like a visual artist in any way. Can't really draw, can't do all this other stuff. But my daughter, she's kind of like you, Shane. She has all the colored pencils and the paper, and she plays this one game. I forget what it's called. I think it's called Patty's World, but she made her own kind of like 3D like construction paper hands of like the
Oh, cool.
character.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
So you can
awesome.
never have too much of that stuff because I know just from her. But yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's where I'm different from you guys is I have, in my opinion, no visual art skills.
Well, you never
I
know. You get just
I
practice,
also have,
really.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have no visually artistic skills whatsoever, but it does not prevent me.
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, and
The
who's to
thing,
say, what's good or bad? Like, I mean, like, there's so many
Mhm.
like weird drawings where it's like it doesn't look per se, it's not realistic. It's just like
Mhm.
squiggles, and it can be like the most moving thing. Like,
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
absolutely. And a lot of people anymore, I won't say younger generations because, get off my lawn and all that shit. But a lot of people anymore don't really relate to works of people like Jackson Pollock and people like that, and yet some of the most moving paintings that I've ever seen were you know uh, were God. I keep starting to say written, were painted by you know those types of artists. So,
Mhm.
but
And I've always wanted to do like sculpture and clay and stuff like that, because I always find sculpture can be so very powerful, but that's never something I've gotten a chance to explore,
mhm.
because I mean you need the space, the the equipment and that kind of stuff to really do it
Yeah,
serious. They would have to
yeah.
really take classes most likely, and a lot of the stuff I like to kind of figure out on my own a little bit, just
Mhm.
because I mean, I feel kind of like a junk artist where it's just like, I just started doing it and I'm like, okay, well, I guess this goes here and this could, like, how do I make this? Well, I guess I could use this and scrunch it up and so it's
Mhm.
just kind of trying to figure it out. And I don't know. I wouldn't call it, maybe it's just found art. I have no idea. Just madness. Beautiful
Uh,
madness. A beautiful mess.
yeah, art is art. And it's all madness.
That makes me curious because I know some of yours, Shane, but I was just curious. What do you guys have any favorite like artists, whether they're contemporary or in the past? And if so, like what kind of art are you guys into? Because I recently have kind of fallen down I've discovered a lot of them on Etsy, like the Etsy rabbit
Mhm.
hole of like all these great horror authors or illustrators, painters, and things. And I was
Mhm.
wondering what artists you guys like and like what styles of art. And we'll start with you, Jessica, since you're the guest.
Yeah. Man, there's so many times when I think I just like when I see something, I'm just like, oh, I like that. Like I pretty much like all styles, but it just depends on the piece. I mean, when you talk about illustrators, obviously you have like Stephen Gamble, who did like the Scary Stories to Tell in the
Yeah.
Dark books. Like that's definitely something that was, I can't say that I loved as a kid, but was
Yeah.
effective. Hugely effective, and that I appreciate. There is someone on Instagram that I have absolutely fallen in love with. I think their name is Noel Badge Pugh, or it's Noel Pugh Badge. I can't remember. But they do like such amazing like kind of sketchy line drawings. And they're usually like naked forms, but like part animal or part fruit, or like something. When been doing research for the Blackout Poetry Collection for Feast, I've been looking at a lot of different artists and stuff, and trying to get in that mindset, and their stuff really jumped out at me. It's so beautiful, but so simplistic. Like, it's so hard to do simplistic line drawings of the human body and the face for me. Especially, I'm just like, like when I try to do it, and you would think I never saw a human being before. Like, I can't do it. So, but I love that style.
I can draw bodies, but I think it's part of my antisocial nature because of the ADHD, ASD, and whatnot. But if I try to draw a face, even my own, yeah, it's like I've never seen a human being before in my fucking life.
This like, area, the
yes.
mouth. Yes. Nose, chin, like I can't do it.
No, I can do the eyes.
I'll be like, what's wrong with you?
Exactly.
Speaking of that, like every face that I've ever tried to draw, like, because in art school, or like elementary school or whatever, when everyone's doing art and they have you do those. My big thing for this region, because I agree with you, Jessica, that's the hardest, was always for like a nose. It was kind of like an L. That was it. Every face. Yep. Whether it was front or side profile.
I always the lips would be too like a B, like two like Homer Simpson lips or something. I don't know. Like, it's just weird. Can never get it right. But if I'm looking at, I can usually do better if I'm looking at a photo or a reference. I can usually do a little better. I'm pretty good at that kind of thing. But yeah, if I'm just straight trying to go from my memory of a human face, that's not happening. It's not.
No, me either. I know how to. I can technically draw a human face just because my dad is a portrait artist. He's a graphite artist, does portraits, and he's really, really good. So, I mean, I know the technical tricks, there's, like, start with a circle and a block, and then you have this triangle here. So yeah, I know all that, but I need the reference, and I'm probably gonna graph the shit out of what I'm drawing first. It's like, that's not fun to me. I'm a pantser with everything I do.
I mean, I definitely prefer that with writing. Just what happens.
But you mentioned sculpture earlier, and I always thought if I was gonna, because I used to think about doing that, but like you, I'd looked into, everything I would need to do that type of artwork, and it just wouldn't pay off, or rather, it would pay somebody off because I'd be buying a lot of shit to make it happen.
Yeah. And I mean, that's definitely an art that you can mess up a bunch of times before you get it right.
But if I was to do it, I would want to sculpt, like, instead of like the old classic Greek and Roman statues, they're like missing an arm and part of a head or something. I think if I was to do it, I would do stuff like that, only I would add parts.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Yes, they're like two arms growing out of the same like shoulder.
Right. Yeah. And a head where a breast should be, and
Monstro Elisis too.
Body horror sculpture.
That would be pretty cool.
I'm down. You know what? I think we need to pool everything together, get you a kiln and a pottery wheel, and make this happen.
Then get somebody
Where
with
you have a grant
much,
you
much.
can apply
Yeah.
for? Like, come on.
Yes,
Need
it's and to Shane, I want to know if you have any favorite artists, but on that point, because you mentioned it about the sculpture, I'll just throw one in there. There's a artist I found. It's not sculpture, but it sounds kind of the same vibe you're going for. His name's Dusty Ray. I actually have two of them up here, but he does a lot of like anatomy type things, and like kind of makes them distorted, kind of like you're talking about. So you might be into that kind of stuff too. I'll send you
That's
the
all.
link,
Yeah.
offline. But yeah, his name's Dusty Ray.
Yeah, I remember when you posted the photos when you first got that one, the
Oh yeah,
red one. Yeah. But I don't know favorites for me. I mean, like if I was thinking contemporary, I would probably name Chad Worley, who uh, um, takes his inspiration from Gamel. Was it Gamel?
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
He is really super talented. If I was not too lazy to get up and walk across the room, I'd grab some of Andy Cole's books. They have illustrations that Chad did. But yeah, and as far as contemporaries, man, there's a ton of cover artists that I just
yeah.
Oh God.
crush on.
Yeah.
Caitlin Hackett is a favorite. Matthew Revert is a
Yes.
huge favorite of
He
mine.
was doing the cover for the book I have coming out this year.
Nice. I love his work.
Yeah.
John Bowden just released a book, or is getting ready to release a
Oh,
book.
yeah.
Rather, it's got a Revert cover, and it's like jigsaw puzzle pieces and other
That
weird.
was awesome.
Yeah.
But
No,
I
he's
love
great. I mean,
Um,
Lynn Hansen is
that.
awesome.
Yeah, she's like next level awesome. She's super talented.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then as far, when it comes to classic, I mean, Van Gogh is my number one favorite of all time artists. I studied art in college, as a minor, so it's something that it's like, oh, I can start, waxing snobbish now, and tell you how much I love Monet and Picasso, but yeah, no, pretty much these days I really gravitate to horror artists.
Yeah. That's
I
kind
definitely
of
love
the same way I
installation
would.
stuff.
What's
Like,
that?
yeah,
What did you say, Jessica?
like installation, like art.
Oh yeah.
Like I can't remember the name of it, but it's that machine that it's constantly leaking its own oil and then has to clean it up. And I'm like, ah!
Yeah, I
Every
remember
time-
that one.
Every time it comes across my feed, I like start crying because it just like makes me, it's so effective.
Yeah,
I would love to
and I
do
think I
something
saw
like
like I think I saw an article too, like with that like it's kind of like progressed now, maybe where like that robot it's like slowing down or something.
Yeah,
So like it's
I
now
mean,
taken on like this whole new element. Like it already had the oil leaking everywhere, and now they're just, At least I think so. I could be wrong, but I remember seeing it because I know it was like a
the
big
only robot I'm rooting
installation
for.
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not necessarily not necessarily an intelligent artifice, but it's
No, it's a little
a much
guy.
more appealing one.
Trying to stay alive.
Yeah. I know it was like in the news recently. But yeah, I have one for you guys. I don't know. I think you would probably maybe like it, Jessica. But like Dusty Ray, I already gave, but like one for me is Allie Burke, and
Oh,
I think she has um on Blue Sky. I think her handle is like or I forget. I wanted to say like
it
Slimy
sounds
Swamp Ghost, but
familiar.
I think that's Trevor Henderson's, but it's something like that. But anyway, her name is Allie Burke, but she's one of my favorites now, and they're almost kind of like
Oh,
this
cool.
one's called Blood Beyond, but it's kind of got, at least to me, like I'm not, like I said, I'm not a visual artist, but it kind of reminds me almost of like kind of like that tattoo style.
Oh yeah,
But
totally. It's
like
really cool.
yeah, she has ones like this, and then other ones that kind of like you said, Shane, like they have like one of them's like worm face, so it's like all these different things where like the faces are kind of like out of whack.
That's wonderful and
Um
terrible.
Yeah, no, I love her art, and then book illustrators like Shane said, I have to go with Tim Jacobus just because that was such a big part of my childhood, the Goosebumps covers and
Oh,
everything.
sure. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm not sure if I knew that name. Tim Jacobus. Okay. I mean, I could see
Yeah,
the
he
haunted
did.
man right behind you there.
Yeah, yeah, he did all those covers, like all the original
Okay.
runs, and it's almost like the Stephen Gamel illustrations and scary stories. Nothing against the other artists, but like after those like 90s runs, like the covers weren't quite the same. And it kind of reminds me of that because I know they like did that redesign of scary
Hmm.
stories and people were like, no.
No, no.
Which I
And
don't even
because
think it was about the art. I think it was just like the memories attached to the original.
true. Well, because the thing is, the scary stories, the stories aren't actually very good.
Mm-mm.
Like, they're not
It
well
is the
written.
illustrations, yeah.
It
Thank
was
you
the
so much.
illustrations
Thank you so
that
much.
were that's what people remember. And like if you go through and read it and it's like these are not doing it. Like there's creepy stuff, but you know, um
Mhm.
um,
they did the cool kind of type too, where it would be like, give me back my toe to be T, a big O, E, and like, so that was kind of cute, but the illustrations are what I like.
I'm so happy to hear you say that because they weren't scary, and I've always kind of harbored that just inside for fear that somebody would cancel me for just coming out and saying it like that. So,
Oh
thank you,
no.
hero.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, in essence, the stories, they have scary concepts, but they're not well written in really at all. So that's
No.
just so I don't know if when they did the reissuing with the new illustrations, if they did any work on the stories, because if they didn't, then they've got nothing.
Shit.
You don't got the story, you don't got the illustrations, you got nothing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and nothing against Alvin Schwartz, but like to your point, the illustrations made it, and I think like the reason those stories were kind of like that is I know they were all like pulled from like folklore, so I don't
Yeah.
know that there was even any kind of, and I hope people don't blast me for this, but I don't know if he like put his own spin on them or if it was like here's a straight retelling, but then the
Yeah.
visual side of it was where there were like liberties taken.
Yeah, they feel very bare bones. They feel just
Mhm.
here's the basic retelling of this, and then they put the little typeface in. And so they were really good to like read aloud. If you were
Mhm.
reading them aloud, they would probably come off a lot scarier because you're doing voices, and it's kind of short staccato sentences. So you're like,
Mhm.
and he opened
Mhm.
the door and crept inside, kind of like stuff. My toe. I don't know. That was terrible. Um,
But yeah,
No, I
I think
thought that
that's a
was
good
good.
point. I think they were literally designed to be read
yeah,
that
the
way,
campfire
as
stories,
Mhm.
yeah, as the title
and then
says,
you would turn the
scary.
book around and Jesus Christ, it'd be
Yeah,
like, and spiders poured out of her face. Ah!
right.
Scariest picture
And
ever.
some some of those illustrations still creep me the fuck out even to
I'm
this
wearing
day.
one.
Yes.
I just realized I'm wearing the pale woman. I
Oh,
don't know if
that's
see
You
it, but-
are. Right on. So,
straight up.
That's
we just had a
Represent.
scary story to tell in the dark. Love hate fest. Something in
There we
there.
go.
Well, it almost kind of makes me rethink though. Like I was thinking recently, it was one of those like super late night thoughts where I couldn't decide if it was actually any good or really stupid. But like normally when people think of like, you think of like prose and stuff, it's like, the author writes the story and then they'll reach out to an artist and be like, hey, here's kind of the gist of what I wrote. Or they give them the whole manuscript and then the author or the artist interprets it. I've always thought it would be cool, like if you kind of gave the artist the free reign and then maybe try and like craft a narrative after it. Like let the artist kind of like put together a series of images.
Yeah, I've done that a couple times with writing stories. I love doing that. So if I would love if it came out that was how he did it, but that would be amazing.
Oh, that's
That is
cool. So
always
you've done
fun.
it where you did the illustrations first.
Yeah. No, I got
Oh.
a book cover. Is it over there? Yeah, so I got a book cover, and then I had to write the story to match the book cover. Here, let me grab it real quick because it's a 90s kind of thing too.
Yeah.
People. Yeah, so these are nail biters.
Oh,
so
those
there you
are
go.
awesome.
So these appear in there's a movie called the WNUF Halloween special.
Yeah.
And there's a sequel called the Out There Halloween Megatape. And in that Out There Halloween Megatape, these books are shown as like in one of the 90s commercials like that they do in WNUF where it's just like crazy commercials. And Chris LaMartina, the director, was just like, it would be so cool if people could buy the books. So could you write the books? So they gave me the cover and I wrote them and the titles, and I got the titles. So
That's
why didn't I know this?
I am B.A.
Yeah.
Rule.
Dude,
But you can't really get them. They're not really available anymore. They were just available for like the movie.
Okay, because I'm sitting there going, why don't I know this?
I think they're working on a distribution thing where they're gonna put out the Out There Halloween Megatape again, and you might be able to get the books again.
Oh,
but
that would be cool.
I'm not sure. But yeah, but they're really fun. They're just they're like Goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
But me.
That's what they immediately
Yeah.
bring to mind when you see the cover is Goosebumps too. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. Why didn't I know?
Yeah.
That's exactly
really
the
fun.
first thing I thought was about like how cool it was that they kind of looked like that.
Mhm.
And I have to ask
they're
Jessica
really
because I
fun.
didn't. Oh, would you say sorry?
Oh no, you're good.
Oh,
This is
no, I was
actually
gonna-
this is a good conversation because we all talk over each other, so nobody's really offended.
Yeah. Well, no, because I was just gonna say, like, when I had that thought, like, I didn't know of anyone that kind of did it in reverse, and I was just curious what that process was like. Starting with an image and kind of working backwards to create the story, like what that approach was even like.
I mean, it was interesting because I got inspiration from the covers, but didn't feel exactly beholden to them. So like when I saw this one where it's a boy being grabbed by a mummy out of a locker, I'm like, well, this doesn't necessarily have to be my main character. If it's set in a school or whatever, and it's like a group of kids like facing a mummy, because I was like, for this one, I was like, I really wanted to have a female main character. It came to me right away. Like I wanted this like big like ancient mummy thing where this girl is just leading this charge. So I basically just took the vibe, wrote the story, And then if there was anything in the cover where I was like, okay, didn't have this scene or something, or I didn't have a kid in a rad shirt. He's got a rad shirt. You know, and I definitely had for the Phantom one, it was like a Halloween kind of thing. So they were like dressed up. It was a big celebration of this water park called Jet and Wild. and there was like it was like everyone was dressed up for this big anniversary of like the celebration of Jet and Wild, and there's like a schmoozy like DJ in the park called Drench Splashwell, and it's really just horrific. And
I can't even begin to even consider saying the things that just went through my mind hearing some of those names.
Like literally, it's nonstop water puns the entire book. But what's so funny is I actually had to tone it down because I accidentally made it like way too like bloody and horrific. And he was like, "You have to remember, this is supposed to be middle grade. Like, people can't die." And I'm like, "Oh, I just killed like 3 people." Okay. So
when I was middle grade, I liked to read about people dying. What's wrong with them?
I know, right? I know. So you got to give them a little like dream sequence when they die, and then it's like, oh, okay, they're fine. Just mutilated beyond recognition. Right. That's okay.
Fine, yeah. As long as the person dying is the one telling about how they died, then they didn't really die because they told about it, right?
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I think I mostly took the vibe and the joy and kind of used it that way. And yeah, they were a lot of fun.
I think I'm going to move on from this topic, but what most fascinates me as art goes for me and my own experiences is when John Taff and I edited the anthology Morbidologies. Our artist, whose first name is Christina, and I don't remember her last name. She's amazing. I would have to climb on a step stool to get the book down and show it to you, but she did not read the book, and yet the cover is so thematic. I mean, it's so tied into the book that it's just incredible. It was like she picked it up by osmosis somehow, you know.
Wow. They give her like a description, just like a basic description.
But he must have, as far as I know. I don't know. I'd have to talk to him. It was David Ward who published it. But no idea. But John Taff and I were both just astonished at how much she nailed the cover. You know,
that always astounds me with cover art, because I can never envision my cover really to a novel. I just can't. Or most things, you know. It's weird. I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah, like my poetry collection that I self-published, Moth Frenzy. I'm so creative that I drew a moth. And that's my cover, you know. It's like, okay, you know, I mean,
the Moth Frenzy seems right.
It's a very psychedelic moth, so I mean, that can count for something.
It does look pretty cool.
I mean,
I gotta be honest. Yeah, the moth that you drew was pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I didn't want to interrupt anybody.
Psst, I love you. Look, welcome to the club. See, we're not the only canned beer drinkers here.
And I hope this shows up, Shane, but I looked up that cover for you. And I'll show my beer too.
Yeah, that's it right there.
That's cool. Wow, yipes. Some Aeon Flux looking.
You know, not to brag, but okay, don't say that shit, Shane. Yeah, totally to brag. That anthology and my poem that I wrote of the same title that is basically the introduction to the anthology, both got mentioned in Datlow's. Both of them are notable
That's awesome.
Yeah, notable mentions in this one. So
Damn, nice.
yeah.
Congratulations.
I'm so big of a nobody that I just nearly flew backwards through a wall.
Oh my god.
I didn't even, I mean, on order and didn't even know it. You know, it's like Steph Ellis says, "Did you know?" It's like,
Yeah, I didn't.
well,
I can't remember if it was Complex Accident of Life. I think got mentioned that year, and I had no idea for like weeks. Whenever I got the Stoker nomination, I had no idea because I'm not a HWA member, so I don't get the email. So all of a sudden, you know, it's just get like a message from someone. They're like, "Congratulations!" I'm like, "For fucking what?"
right.
Thanks, I'm amazing. I know that, but what specifically?
And on this, I'm in the same boat with HWA news and stuff. It's like I'm not a member, so I don't get the memos, so to speak. You know, and you know, it's like I got contacted by someone last week to write something, which I don't think I can talk about yet. But it was like, I'm not a member of HWA. I can't do this. It's like, well, no, actually, if you were reading the bulletins, you'd know. It's like, well, but like I said, I'm not a member. So,
The bulletins.
right.
Yeah, no, I get people send me messages all the time asking me to, you know, if I would consider nominating or, you know, submitting something. And I'm just like, I can't, I can't do any of that stuff. And they're like, what? When have I ever, like, I think I was briefly a member in like, I have no idea, 2011.
Right. Like 2014 or something.
Yeah. And it was, you know, it just, I think at the time, Duotrope was how I submitted everything back in the day. And then whenever it went paid, I was like, I have to make a choice. And I chose Duotrope over the dues. And then I just ended up leaving Duotrope anyway. But you know, it's an organization.
That's right. That's right. And that's why I've never been a member. You know, it's like I got informed
awesome people
years
involved.
Yeah, it's a good thing, I think. You know, other people love it, so it must be a good thing for them. But for me, it's an organization, and it involves people and socialization, and sometimes responsibility. And I'm a fucking kid. And
I like Stoker Con is fun. But yeah.
So yeah, I've never been a person for those type of, you know, organizations like that. So
I mean,
I was never a Boy Scout.
Respect people who can do mentoring and all that kind of stuff. Like I wish I was that kind of person sometimes. You know, other most of the time I'm like, I kind of like just doing my own thing. But you know, I love, you know, supporting people in other ways, obviously, but I don't think I should be leading anyone. I don't think.
You know, and I agree with you 100%. You know, God bless the mentors of the world.
Seriously.
I'm not that guy. I'm the guy who will talk about your book, push your book, tell you if you don't think you're good enough, that you are good enough, just keep going and you'll get better, you know, those sorts of things. I'll review your book, you know.
It's a very important role.
Right, but I'm not the guy when it comes to looking for a life role model. This is not the dude right here. This is the guy who's gonna talk. Well, the first thing is don't fucking trust anybody.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, probably not the dude you want lifting you.
I had to train someone at Ruby Tuesdays 20 years ago, and ever since then, never. Not leading.
Yeah, I was a tutor in college, rather. I did tutoring in the media center, you know, and it was okay, but it was like I hit a stage where I just started getting pissed off at people because everybody's coming in and going, how do I do this? And it's like, well, I'm not here to answer that.
Yeah.
You have to figure that out, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, no, just tell me how to write the sentence. No, you write the sentence and I'll tell you what I think.
Yeah. How it can be improved.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
then you
so
learn.
I suck at leading people, you know.
Mhm.
I'll lead people right off a cliff because I'm prone to jumping off them. But sorry. Back to fiction. Rich brought up earlier that when we were talking about Kath Koja, whether she was an influence or not, which I wanted to follow up then and fell down a rabbit hole, but I would like to know something about that. If I say who are your influences, who are the top three?
I would say Roald Dahl, especially short stories,
Absolutely.
stuff like that. Anne Rice was a huge influence when I was first like starting to write, like when I was 19 and I was just writing nonstop, like, you know, word salad and stuff, and all my prose was extra purple. But like I was reading the entire like Vampire Chronicles and Mayfair Witches, and I'm like, this is world building. Like it's a little too much, but it was so rich, and I absolutely like, yeah, definitely Anne Rice was a huge impact. And then I mean I guess I gotta say Stephen King, because like that was what I was reading in third grade. Fourth grade was my first
Right.
novel, and so I mean, kind of can't. It started me down a path. Certainly, I was already reading horror and stuff. I like scary stories to tell in the dark, and any kind of like campfire story anthologies. Like I loved those. Like any random one, and it could be the same. You know, you have the Big Toe, you have Taily Poe, you have like where it's always someone stole some shit. Now the thing you stole it from is coming to get you. Like 10 different stories that are all that. And like someone always steals it for the dumbest.
Are you frozen, Rich?
Oh, whoops.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so probably, yeah, Stephen King. Also Mary Higgins Clark. I loved Mary Higgins Clark when I was a kid, and I really loved how like she was, I don't know, literally there's loves music, loves to dance, has like a man freezing women and then dancing with them on and videotaping it. Like that's not like a cozy mystery. That's messed up. And it's an amazing
Mary Higgins Clark can be a little bit uncozy sometimes.
Yeah.
I think.
Like
I haven't read any of that stuff in decades.
Watching and like oh my god, she was messed up.
Yeah, kidding.
I love her. That was like my sick day jam, like in middle school, was cozy up with some Mary Higgins Clark and be like, oh my god, this is scandalous. Frozen ladies, what? They're my mom's books. Oh,
Yeah, exactly. See, that was the thing, is I always got away with, you know, if a teacher caught me with something, you know, that because we had guidelines for what we could and couldn't read, you know, back then. And if a teacher caught me with something, you know, it was inevitably my mother's or my father's book, even if it wasn't, you know, because they let me read whatever the hell I chose to read. So if anybody called them and said, do you know your son's reading? They'd just say, yeah, did you know that I'm busy having a beer and smoking a dude? So could you fuck off right now?
I mean, my mom would basically, I mean, not the beer, and like,
Yeah.
be like, I don't give a fuck. Well, it depends. They were inconsistent,
Yeah.
kind of, on what they let me read or let me read. They would let me read all kinds of horror, and they wouldn't really care about that. Like that I was reading Pet Sematary in 4th grade. But when I wanted to read Interview with a Vampire, when the movie came out, and I was like, oh, I want to see the movie, and they're like, nah. You can't. You're too young. And I was like, okay, I want to read the book. And they were like, no, it's too adult for you. And like anyone who's read Interview with a Vampire knows there's not any sex in that book. There's sexuality, sure.
No.
But there's no sex. There's hardly any cursing. There is probably less violence than your standard Stephen King book. Which is it just goes to show that, the inconsistency of just like the scariness of sex, in America, where it's just like, but there wasn't there. Just the threat of it was like, no, you can't read it. It's like literally just Pet Sematary engages like mocking Judd and saying his wife was having people bang her in the mailbox.
Yep. Exactly.
And I was reading it to kids at school aloud, and they're just like, no biggie. How dare you read about effeminate vampires?
Yeah, and I mean, really, there's so much more risque fiction in the world than Anne Rice, really, when it comes right down to it. Even someone I got in a mini argument with someone recently about this scene with Claudia and Lewis and Lestat, where they're all blood swapping, and people are going, do you realize how much of a pedophile scene that was? And I was like, are you serious, man?
Like,
they were drinking blood. They were.
It's like, I can control where other people's minds go.
Right.
Like, no.
So no, I didn't pick that up, actually.
Must have missed that part. Like, now, if we're talking Mayfair witches, okay, yeah, there's some issues. Really.
Yes. I have to admit, though, that one of my favorite books of all time is the very first book in that series. I absolutely loved that book.
I love the entire series. I mean, yeah, the squicky stuff aside, like, I love the whole Taltos, like, mythology. Like, that is just so cool. And, you're reading it and you're like, oh God. That's another one where it's like, I feel really bad that I'm turned on right now.
Right.
Lasher is a confusing.
I'm glad I'm not Catholic. I'd have a lot to confess right now.
Yeah. Which was so funny because, like, I tried to get into the AMC show for Mayfair Witches, and I'm like, why did they cast Dave Matthews as Lasher? This doesn't seem right.
I was going to ask you guys about that, because everyone knows, like, our TBRs are going to crush us to death. But when you guys were talking about Mayfair Witches, the book, I was going to ask about the TV series, because I see that every time I log in to check Shudder and everything else. But I don't know. When you said Dave Matthews is Lasher, I might have to give a pass to the series.
They did some interesting things with it, as far as like restructuring like the timeline and stuff. And God, I can't remember her name. The Rowan's mother, who's basically just dead at the beginning of the book. She dies pretty instantly. They keep her alive a lot longer, which is great because it's Annabeth Gish is the actress, and I fucking love her. So that part was good, but like, yeah, they took out Michael. Michael's not in it.
I hated that. Where's Michael?
Like, with the glove.
You're the dude with the hands, man. He starts the whole thing.
Yeah, they have like this whole like other guy who's like I think a Talamasca guy, and yeah, so I think they're slowly, because they just introduced the Talamasca in Interview with a Vampire series. So I think they're trying to bring the crossover a lot sooner than it happened in the books.
Yeah,
But
because it was quite late in both.
Merrick, yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
which I really wasn't huge
Yeah.
on that book, but yeah, no, I didn't. It sucks because like I like a lot of actors in Mayfair Witches, but it's not doing it for me, which is unfortunate because I was like, has been really great. You know, Mayfair Witches, my favorite Anne Rice series, is going to be even better. Your mileage
Yeah,
may vary.
I haven't seen a single episode of Interview, so I'm glad to hear you say that.
It's so good.
Good.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
See, I hit Mayfair Witches first just because I loved the Witching Hour so incredibly much, and just desperately wanted it to be everything I loved about that series, and it was
I
just
didn't even finish the first
utterly
one.
nothing I loved about that series.
Yeah. Where's Michael?
Exactly. You know, it's like, no, if you don't have the hands, man.
Yeah, like Michael was like so hot.
Yeah, exactly. And him and Rowan, like,
yeah,
oh
like
yeah,
they were such a hot couple. Like it's such a bummer. I was like watching the first episode. I'm like, is Michael gonna?
yeah, right. Where the fuck is Michael? I mean,
who's supposed to knock her up?
yeah.
But yeah, rest assured, Interview with the Vampire is everything you want it to be and more. It's so good. It's devastatingly beautiful, and I'm so excited for the next season. They're doing Vampire Lestat, so they're doing like the band and everything. So it's
right on. Oh, that was such a fun part of that series too.
Yeah, definitely something that that kind of got messed up, and well, a lot of stuff got messed up in Queen of the Damned, the movie.
The movie, yeah. Pretty severely.
And it's my favorite of the vampire books, of course.
It's one of mine. Yeah,
it's a great one.
Probably the first three are my favorites, but I've read every single one of them more than once. So
yeah, they all have their own little charm.
Yeah,
some more than others. Tale of the Body Thief is a nice little romp. Nice little break between like heaven and hell and like crazy, like Akasha in the beginning of vampirism. And then you just have Tale of the Body Thief where Lestat pees for the first time in like a month.
Right.
He's like, whoa.
She was brilliant. Anne Rice was a brilliant creator when it comes to coming up. When you start thinking about all the different biological, physiological differences there would be between a vampire and a living human, and she thought of every fucking thing. It's like Stephen Graham Jones did with mongrels and werewolves, you know, where he considered how pantyhose would murder a werewolf, you know.
Brilliant.
And the logic behind it was brilliant. But yeah, I love that shit. So you're working on a new found poetry, The Wuthering Heights, correct?
Yep, working on that. Working on the last book in the gardening guidebook series, Witches in the Warrens, that takes place in the early 80s, and it's going to be a glam rock kind of horror. It's like just in time for Vampire Lestat. My book, that'll be exactly the same. Excellent.
Nothing you do is exactly the same as anybody else's things.
That's true. So that'll be fun because I'm also doing kind of a companion because there's a band in the novel, Natalie and the Blackouts. I'm doing an album, kind of like their lyrics, like her lyrics book, and I'm making blackout poetry of Hares in the Hedgerow, the second book in the series, to write all of the songs for the band.
Nice.
So I'm gonna make a little companion thing for the release. So that should be fun.
I just totally, it's like, okay, that's just a great fucking name for a punk band.
Natalie and the Blackouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because I was writing Hares in the Hedgerow, and it was just a note to myself, because Avery's sister is named Natalie, and I was kind of writing background for the novel, and I was like, Avery has blackouts through the first book, and that's kind of discovered as what happens when all these crazy murders are happening. So I had written, it was like, Natalie and the Blackouts, kind of just asking myself, what does Natalie know about the Blackouts when they were kids? And I was like, actually, I'm just going to name the band that in the third book. Easy peasy. Just love a little note to myself just became the whole thing. So it's been fun writing I can't write a lot of music. I can play the piano a little bit, but I don't have a keyboard anymore. So I just kind of write the music in my head, and I'll sing it to myself to try to remember it. So I have some full like rockish songs that I've written for the band. So maybe someday I'll get to record them.
I can write lyrics. Okay. I'm a guitarist. I've got guitars around me, and I can, like you, I can play the piano, but I don't have one, so I just, can only play it in my head these days. But, but I can't write music. I can't read music. I can't write music. I can read a tablature diagram for a piano or a guitar, but I
can still sight read a little bit.
Yeah,
tiny bit. The chords and incorporating both hands. Nah. But I can kind of guess the notes there and stuff, and I can still play some stuff by memory. But otherwise, I'm just smashing chords and being like, oh, that kind of good.
But you're a musical person. You're heavily into music. I know that just from all your wonderful dancing online.
Yeah, I am a show choir nerd. I'm a theater kid. It's true.
Yeah.
100%. I'm certain it's very hard to tell.
But I mean, and I'm very much the same way. I'm very much a show off. Not intentionally. I don't think I need to be the center of attention, but I tend to walk in and be that way anyway. And it's a nervous thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blah 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 blah. Because that's what I am. But as far as music goes, Rich and I are both very musical people. We both, when we don't have humanity piping into our ears, we have music piping into our ears.
Same. I write to music all the time. I love instrumental tracks. I love like movie scores and stuff like that. The Substance is one of my favorite like new movie scores. I've just been listening to The Substance over and over, and it's very which is
my favorite.
Clearly,
my favorites to write to are House. The original House soundtrack, and also Glass.
Okay.
Yeah, those are both
on my list for sure.
Yeah. And they're both, I mean, I won't say that. I'd probably get lynched. I heartily disliked Glass as a movie.
I didn't see it.
But the soundtrack I just love the soundtrack. It's just perfect to write to.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many good ones. Oh God, I was just talking to someone about this. Some of my favorite ones. Ex Machina is amazing. Killing of the Sacred Deer, and Under the Skin. Kingdom of Heaven. That was one
Yeah,
I
really
thought of
sad.
recently. That's a good one. So many good ones. I have like it's something like it's like 7 months long. It's like my instrumental playlist. It's on Spotify.
On
It's
Spotify, I have multiple playlists that I will die
Yes.
100 years before I finish listening to.
I had this one where I just like added, it was all like 70s Italian horror like soundtracks and like stuff.
Nice.
I just like added that over, and I used to teach creative writing, after school creative writing, and when we were like writing free time, I would just put on my instrumental playlist, and some the horror tracks, the 70s horror tracks, there would just be a woman screaming in the middle of nowhere to be like, oh. And these poor like 10-year-olds, they're like writing about like a ghost poop or something, or like whatever children write about, and they were just like, and then there'd be one child that was like unfazed.
Right.
You're like, let me sit next to you and see what you're writing.
Like, got anything stronger?
Yeah. There was one girl who every time I had the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade soundtrack playing, she could name the titles of those songs. She's like, Canyon of the Crescent Moon. And I'm like, how are you doing this?
That's
It was
pretty
amazing.
impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
Like that was the,
Yeah, I
you
mean, I
know,
can see like
that's
I
what love
can
about
name
music. Like, who are you?
my guilty
She said,
musical
my dad's an
confessions.
Indiana Jones fan. Like, okay.
I can name every single song on Saturday Night Fever, the soundtrack.
Okay.
No
But they
shit.
were all major. They were all major disco hits when I was a teenager. So
There you go.
That's fair.
Stuff. I don't know if I could name one where I could name them all.
yeah,
Me
no.
either.
A
Especially
lot of
the
heavy,
instrumental ones.
Yeah, no way.
a lot of heavy metals, a lot of heavy metal albums. I can name every song on them, but yeah, no.
I just added a bunch of Buckethead to my instrumental playlist.
Buckethead.
Some guys at the bar were talking about Buckethead, and they were like, "Oh man, I really love his instrumental stuff." And I like looked up, and I'm like, "Buckethead, you say?" And they're like, "Okay." I was like, "Oh my god, he literally has like, he releases like 20 albums a year."
Right? Yep.
It's insane. And then the titles of the songs will sometimes like be like a full sentence and stuff. And it's like, I was like, man, I've been sleeping on Buckethead.
Who is the writer? Paul Michael Anderson. Paul Michael Anderson has these story titles that are like,
Yes,
the night you die and I put you to rest, you know?
Yeah.
I love the unflinching confidence of his story titles, like 100%.
And that his publishers are willing to take it on, you know?
Oh, 100%. I mean, they're lucky. He's a phenomenal writer. Yeah, for sure.
He is. Good guy too. He's fun.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, Shane. That like in the like early to mid 2000s, at least, like I listened to a lot of those, like you would call them scene bands or whatever. That was like the cool thing, was like, 20-word titles or things like that. Yeah. But every time someone mentions long titles, I think about Fiona Apple.
Oh yeah, the Win the Pawn.
Yeah, it's like, I forget however many words or lines, but isn't it like, it's When the Pawn, but isn't it technically like a poem?
It's a full poem. Yeah.
It's like,
I think it's in the Guinness Book of World Records or something.
Yeah, for like longest album title or something like that.
Yeah, I watched a video recently of her like performing the full like poem. Like, it's long and it's powerful. It's pretty cool. That's a good album too. Love Fiona Apple.
Yeah, same here. But
You know,
that's what it made me think of. Sorry, Shane, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. It was a total aside anyway. I watched that Fire Aid show last night
Oh,
for the
yeah.
LA fires and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I confess that I have never ever listened to Pink.
Oh,
And I
okay.
heard her on that, and it was like, oh my God, this woman can really sing her ass off.
Oh, she has a beautiful voice. She's a great performer.
Yeah, it was
She
just
does a
really
lot of
something to me.
Yeah, I didn't know if the Fire Aid, or if she did the any of her rope work, but she does a lot of like rope dancing kind of stuff in her concerts. That's just like, my God, the power that it takes to do that and then to sing at the same time.
Yeah, right.
Amazing.
Yeah, she sang Me and Bobby McGee,
Oh,
and
wow. She's
it's the
perfect
first
voice
time
for
in
that.
my lifetime I ever heard somebody and thought that's better than Janice did it by a long shot.
Mm.
I'll have to check that out. I'm a big fan of her
Yeah.
voice.
But like I say, total aside, we probably should be winding up soon because I know my wife is probably getting hungry, and my dog is standing here tearing up a napkin because it was sitting on top of the dog food bin. So she's also hungry. But this has been an amazing conversation. Everybody
Thank you so much.
who listens to this, go buy all the Jessica McHugh books, and follow her on Blue Sky, on Facebook, wherever the hell she's at. She's an awesome person, amazing creator, and welcome here anytime at all, Jess.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. Oh, and I'm not sure I mentioned, but July this year is when Pins is coming out from Madness Heart Press. It's a stripper horror novel. It's super fun. It came out in 2012. This is a whole new version, and it's super fun. So keep an eye out for it, and look out for the Matthew Revert cover reveal.
Right on. Is that coming soon? I want to see it now.
Well, it was just so funny because it was a picture he had already made, and he shared it on Instagram, and I was like, I need this to be the cover of my book coming out. Can I buy this from you? And he's like, yeah.
Nice. I love that.
That's awesome.
So you might have seen it like in passing if you follow his work already, but we'll do a big reveal.
It won't
So
have
soon.
the text and stuff on it.
It won't.
The one he shared.
It won't have the because it's like a stripper, and it's like, oh, you tried, or something.
Yeah.
Instead, it'll be like Pins. But it's a really fun book and gross. So that's me.
Well, yeah, and I was just gonna say, where can I pre-order this thing? I'm all over that.
Not quite ready for pre-order, but yeah, hopefully we'll have something.
I will watch for it, and we will announce it when it is ready.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank
have
you
a
so
lovely
much.
night, and come back very, very soon.
I would love to. All right, you guys,
Good night,
have
Rich.
a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.